This word has a munach, a part of the zakef katon. So if Amelia, you look under the yud, you'll see that the note there is something we call a munach. It has a straight line going down and then a line going across. That's the letter, that's the reading note that's under the yud there. So what we have been saying whenever we see that particular shape is it's telling us that this is something that is disconnected from what's happened before and then leading into a new chapter that's going to come after it.
So every note has
So every
meaning?
time, every note imparts extra meaning to the group of words that it's after. So we're reading on the next page where it says number 1, Noach noticed a continuous decline of the waters, and he tried to make accurate observations about the latest results as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So this is telling us something different than what we would normally interpret here. Normally it reads that he waited another 7 days. He waited another 7 days. But what we're saying here is Noach is trying to go to the future separate from so each day is sort of separate from the day before. Making a new observation, can I go now? A new observation, can I go now? So he's trying to make a break from the past, which has been floodwaters and no possibility of doing anything other than staying in the ark, and to look for a future going forward. Od, again.
Wait, if you go back here, where it says, and I don't know if it means anything or matters, but here where it says, and he attempted, yet in his explanation he changed the word
he tried.
He may have changed
that might be stylistic. I don't think that's. I think that's just yeah.
He may have changed the word along the way and forgot to correct it.
Yeah. I don't think that there's a significant difference between the two. So yeah, I think that's just an editing. I'm not going to say error, just a stylistic difference. Od, again, this is a katon. So when you look on top of the ayin, you'll see the note that has those two little dots on it. And what we say every time we see a katon is that this is a word that has more than one possibility or is reflecting more than one thing going on at the same time. Again, he approached the pigeon to undertake the task because it was reliable in a previous performance and accurate in the report, although he had assumed that drastic changes have occurred, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark.
We call the dove the pigeon.
So, Yonah, dove, we are seeing that he is interpreting as pigeon here. Pigeon and dove are the same family of bird. We learned that a couple of weeks ago. But other than the fact that it might be a more common genus, like it's the more root word of what we're talking about here. He is always defining it as pigeon. In any case, we're seeing that from the doubleness that we're expecting from the katon, that Noach had expectations of what was going on outside, and yet he sent the pigeon out to do the same task, despite the fact that he had gotten a different report. So he felt, okay, here's the report, and here are my expectations, and the two are different. Nonetheless, we have to do it again. So we see the doubleness there. We're good. Shiv'at, mercha. This one has under the ayin a sort of scooping forward shaped note. That one is going to tell us that it is loosely connected to what's come from before, but more importantly, focusing on what is going to come after it. So number 3, 7 of. After 7 of the following day periods, Noach repeated the same routine to clarify his plans and calm his anxiety, as denoted by the directional shape of the reading mark. Here, we're seeing that we're ascribing emotions to Noach that, again, none of the other Mefarshim necessarily read into it at this point. I mean, we can certainly assume that after being cooped up for so long, he doesn't know what the final status of the world is going to be, and he certainly should be anxious. And yet, it's not something that we hear of anywhere else. Nonetheless, he is looking forward to what is going to come after it. And again, it's loosely connected to that he's waiting. Again, he had expectations, and they're not necessarily being met in the report that the pigeon, the dove, is giving him. Yamim, days. This one has a tipcha. Tipcha looks backwards at what comes from before and has a slight pause after it. Obviously, those days included a Sabbath from which Noach expected a beneficial influence, as stressed by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So, because 7 is the word before it, Yamim, which looks back to 7, is going to tell us that in those days there was a 7, there was a Shabbos. So, Noach is hoping or expecting that the influence of Shabbos is going to make things different, and that's the time at which he pauses. That's why Yamim has that pause after it. The 7 is going to perhaps make something different afterwards.
Have flesh for children.
Not yet.
Afterwards.
Soon.
Afterwards. That's why he's waiting to get off the Teva.
Acherim, others. This one has an etnachta. Etnachta is the note that's under the resh there. It has a stable base and sort of looks up from there. So we're going to see that this word is going to have some element of stability to it. Number 5, he presumed that that more features of relief will start to appear other than those which were previously noticed, as shown by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So normally we would think that the word acherim would refer to Shivat Yamim. He waited another 7 days. So other would refer to 7 days, right? But we know that the tipcha, the number under the note under Yamim, has a little pause after it. So here we see he separated out the meaning of the word acherim from 7 days. So again, stylistically, he's following what the notes are telling us, and I think that's very important to point out here. So he's saying others has nothing to do with the days. Others has to do with what he's expecting to see in the landscape. He wants to see more mountains and more trees, and he wants to see other things. So that's what he's looking for after 7 days. So 7 days, looking for others.
When you say stylistically, you mean the interpretation?
So the interpretation that he's giving here follows what the notes tell us is going to happen.
That this is
So-
his own interpretation?
So what he's done is he has taken a variety of commentators and midrashim and stories and others and sources from Kabbalah and so on, and he's trying to put that together with the characteristics that the notes also impart. So given that the words and the vowels were given at Sinai, were God-given, and that the reading marks and cantillation was given at Sinai, they must impart a different level of meaning other than the simple meaning that we can read in. We realize that the Torah is an information overloaded piece of text. What do I mean by that? it not only conveys the simple meaning of the words as you read them, but there is extra depth in the phrasing, in looking at it as if it were phrased in different ways, at letters that are added, letters that are taken away. And what this parish, what this book is trying to do is to say that there is another level of depth that is based on the characteristics of the notes themselves. And they have individual features that tell us pauses, that tell us connections, that tell us separations. And he is trying to give significance to why did that word get that note. It must have something else that it's trying to tell us other than what we learn from a simple reading of the sentence as it is. So each thing that was graced to get a note has to have something special about the fact that it was graced with a note and it was graced with that particular note.
I didn't realize the notes were like from.
So again, he doesn't mention it here, but I think it's very important to say the fact. Yomim has a pause after it, the tipcha. And that's how he gets his license to say others is referring to something other than the days. It's what he's expecting in terms of features. And again, that is something that you won't find in anybody else's interpretation, because it's only there when you look at the notes and the characteristics of the notes. Vayosef, and he increased. This one has a tevir. A tevir is like the merchat, that scooped forward looking thing with a dot in the center.
You can't see, it's hard to see. It actually, it looks sort of like,
You could take the article.
but it's like that, but it's sort of smudged, it looks and microscopic. It's very hard to
So,
see that.
Amelia?
There, see?
Okay.
So it's the
So
scooped
that's-
forward shape
Where-
with a dot sort of in the center of
Under
it.
the yud.
So what we've decided is whenever we are seeing this
Oh, I see,
pattern,
okay.
we're seeing
yeah.
something that is sheltered from things that are around it.
Okay, I see it. Thanks.
And this note again has an implied minor pause after it. Shalach, sending.
Sorry, by Yosef.
Sorry, by Yosef, and he increased. Better. So I was wondering why it got there. And he increased. Number 6, Noach was anxious for new developments, and he increased the frequency and distance of missions to be able to establish the fact of the situation as suggested by the shape of the reading mark. So,
Yosef means increase.
So why is Yosef named Yosef?
Mm-hmm.
Because Rachel has not had any children, and all of her sister and all of the other handmaidens have had all these other have had 10 children up until this point, and she gives birth to Yosef. And what does she say? Yosef Hashem li ben acher. God should add me another son. So that's why Yosef means to add. Specifically, that's what he was called. Just add me more like that. And
It's like calling your kids thing 1, thing 2.
The Romans used to call it prima secunda, like first, second, third.
Yeah, does everyone have each of the meaning?
all the tribes, when they're named, specifically give a reason for the name.
Right. Oh, okay.
So biblical names, as a concept, and we've mentioned this before, aren't necessarily the name that person was called by. They will tell us a particular feature or characteristic of the person that the story wants us to focus on.
And then they have a totally different name somewhere else,
They might.
secretly?
They
We
might.
don't
So,
know
so I mean,
How do we know?
the biggest example is
Yitro.
Yitro, who keeps on getting
that.
different names when we see him in different contexts. And we learn from Midrash that he had even more names than that. So the name sort of gives us his role in context, or gives us a particular feature that we're supposed to focus on,
Like an
or so on.
Like is one in
So Lavan, who's called white,
right.
and who always acts like somebody who is deceptive to try to make himself look like he's the good guy. That's why he's called white. His name probably wasn't Lavan.
Yeah.
But in the story, we want to see that this is a guy who is going to come up looking shining in white no matter what he did. So
Like Hillary Clinton.
So that means that if people are very literal, they're not going to get this stuff. Like,
so this
isn't that difficult for people who just take things literally, which many people do?
Number one, we ascribe meaning to all of the different parts of information that are given to us by Torah. So we start with the Pshat, the simple interpretation of the sentence, and then we realize that we can build on that things that are implied but a little bit hidden, things that are not obvious but you can see that there's a hint to them, and then things that you can only know because it's a tradition that's passed down that's there. So those are the levels. And the purpose of this Sefer is to say that given that we were given the notes, there has to be an interpretation that goes along it. So this would fall in that third or fourth level. This is something that there's sort of a hint to it, but it's not a clear hint, and we really have to divine out what it means. And can you be literal and accept something that's given in Midrash? No. But it's not necessarily meant to be taken at face value. So object lessons are object lessons, and you learn from them. Stories and fables and so on are one thing, but things that tell us characteristics in a way that we could understand a context are again a feature that we need to learn from. And can everybody understand every level that's there? Ultimately, but you have to build up to it. Some people don't want to go all of the steps to get there, so are they going to be able to get there? No. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, and that doesn't mean that it wasn't written into the text. That just means that you're not willing to get all the bases before you can say, yes, I see that there's some truth in that, or I see that was implied in the text at least. So again, one of the great examples is what I pointed out, the fact that Achirim, for everybody else who looks at this sentence, he waited another 7 days. Another has to talk about the 7 days. What's it hanging out there? He waited 7 days to see other things. That's the way we're reading this sentence. He waited 7 days, Achirim, to look for other things. The only way that you could see that is if you knew the characteristics of the notes. That after a tipcha, there's a pause. And Achirim is going to give you stability. It's going to be at the middle of the sentence. It's going to stop you, and you're going to be there, and you're going to have to focus on that. And that only comes from looking at the clues that we're getting here. So Yosef, Noach was anxious for new developments. He increased the frequency and distance of the missions to be able to establish the facts of the situation as suggested by the shape of the reading mark. We have here yet again something that none of the other interpreters say is going on. We have defined in the text, he sends out the Orev, he sends out the raven once, and then he waits 7 days, sends out the Yonah, sends out the pigeon, the dove, and then he waits another 7 days, sends out the dove again. We don't know that there are all of these times in between when he's trying and they're coming back, and he's trying and they're coming back. We just think that there are these single defined missions that we're talking about. And here he's implying that there are many, many more of them. So they come from a place of safety and then they go out. They come from a place of safety and then go farther. Come from a place of safety and then go even farther. that is the shape of the reading mark that's telling us from this place of safety, from this sheltered place, they're going farther and farther and farther. We'll wait till my wife is here and she'll tell us about attachment theory. But this is. We continue on. Shalach, sending, with a mercha. So remember, this is a sort of the gently scooping forward note that's under the lamed, and that is lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly focusing in on what's going to come after. In spite of this satisfactory report received from the pigeon, Noach was also sending other types of winged species in various directions, not taking advantage of one only, as expressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. Again, something that we wouldn't have known from anywhere else, that other birds are going on missions as well. So, in this context of from the point of safety, he's sending things out. He's not only sending the Yonah, he's sending everything else that he's got necessarily as well that's capable of surviving these conditions, and he's sending them in different directions. And it is going to focus us forward on et hayonah, with the pigeon, with the tipcha. This is going to focus us back on the word or phrase that's come before, and it's going to pause afterwards. After consultation with the pigeon, Noach sent forth other flying species together with the pigeon, instructing it to share its experiences while being in the air, as specified by the closing corresponding shape of the directional reading mark. Because the Yonah is going to go together with Shalach, all these other birds that are being sent out are going to learn something from the Yonah. So that's how it closes the phrase, because the Yonah is going to close what all the other birds are doing as well. It's going to instruct them. It's going to tell them its lessons. It's going to tell them what it's learned. It's going to, and by the way, Noach is going to consult with the Yonah on which way he should send and which birds he should send and so on. So again, new level of depth.
Flying species, but we're assuming that they're all birds.
Agreed. I've inferred it certainly could be insects. I don't.
Well, you wanted to get them off the boat already, no?
Yeah, get the mosquitoes out of here.
Min hateva, from the box. And this has a sof pasuk. This has the end of the sentence, which we've said is a stabilization and a pause and a major pause after it. The deep concern of Noach was based on the unrest and gradual deterioration of some species resulting from the box due to the imposed restrictions and the general condition. So again, after the tipcha, we have this pause. So min hateva has to stand a little bit on its own. So he's saying from the ark, from the box, things are happening because of the nature of the confinement, of being in the ark itself. And that has to stand on its own. He's sending all of these birds on missions because things are bad in the box. He's not sending them from the ark, min hateva, from the ark. He's not telling the birds, fly from here. He's saying, go find other land, find the conditions, because things are bad here. And again, that's the same thing after Yamim Ta'achirim, Min Hayana, Et Hayana, Min Hateva. This pause is telling us something that's completely unexpected and something that, again, we don't see from any other sources. So you're okay? You're looking a little quizzical? Sue? You're okay with that? Yeah, okay. So, at the end of each sentence, we read it out loud just so that we can get the idea of the pauses and the emphasis.
This one's wrong.
Vayachel od shivat yamim achirim vayosef shalach et hayonah min hatzeva. And we're going to continue to the next sentence. Vatavo, with the pashta. Pashta is going to emphasize the word and look forward to what is going to come after it. And it came. The pigeon left in the early morning with hopes for accomplishments, and it came back with a cheerful result after frustrated attempts on the previous days, as indicated by the high directional shape of the reading mark. So here, all of a sudden, we see that the note being on top of the word is also imparting to us something different. This is not something that we have always brought together when we see a pashta, but in one of the future introductions, we will talk about the notes that appear on top and the notes that appear below, and see if we can find common characteristics to each of them. So this is going to state the fact that it came is something that is of note. Vatzavo, and it's coming, means that it must have bisorot tovot, must have good things that it's got to tell, because it's on top and it's focused on it, and it's going to lead us forward. So again, that's what the Pashta tells us. Elav with a mapach, and this is the one that looks like a lesser sign that's under the lamed. So because we're reading in the other direction, it's actually focusing as something that's taking all the things that have come before and focusing them onto something new that's going to change or be different afterwards. So the shape is telling us that that's what this word is going to have some concept of hidden inside of it. To him, number 2, knowing that Noach was anxious to obtain a report about the outside conditions, as soon as it returned, the pigeon came directly to him with the good news, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So the bird is the pigeon is not just going to return to the ark and hang around. It's going to come to Noach. It's going to take everything that it's got and allow him and maybe it together to decide the path that they're going to go forward on after it. So it's going to take what's come from before, give it to him, and the concept is the giving it to him, giving it to Noach, the report, is going to lead to what is going to come afterwards, is going to lead to more focus, to more decision. Hayonah, again with the pashta. So again, we're going to focus on the word and perhaps look forward from it, but with an emphasis. Once again, the pigeon proved most efficient understanding the master's problem as stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we're focusing and emphasizing the Yonah, and we're saying that it is going to make things move forward. When we realize that we've introduced the concept that other flying creatures are going out of the ark, then it might not be the Yonah that continues to be the number one, the high-ranking officer here, and yet it gets focused upon. Yonah, because we're ascribing to this species an understanding that gives it special status, and that's why again it gets a pashta, it gets a melech, it gets not a melech, but it gets a note that focuses on that word. Le'et, for time. This has got a munach or a zakeh katon. The note is going to separate out from what's come before and then lead us into what's going to come afterwards. Although it flew extensively during the day, it managed to return straight to Noach for time that he could draw his conclusions, as showed by the shape of the reading mark. So what we're saying is each of the missions that it's flying is going to be separately planned from the one before. You're going to take the information, and then you're going to pause, take what you've got, and then go forward with another idea. So, I went that way and I saw, ripples in the water. Well, maybe you should go close to that area. I went that way and the water looked still and deep and dark in color. Oh, well, go a different direction. But each mission is going to be separate from the previous ones because we're saying that there are multiple missions, and it's going to focus us forward on what we're going to do next. erev, of evening, with a katon. So again, this is that double concept that we're looking for in this word. Because it was already the beginning of evening, Noach was anxious for its safe return, waiting impatiently for the pigeon and its report, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So, like when I read this, I wasn't quite sure what doubleness he was seeing in the concept here, other than the fact that could be good news, could be bad news. Certainly, evening is a time of uncertainty, and